Look at you in your squalid prison! Who put you down there? And now that I set you free, what is the first thing you are going to do?
Destroy him!
Good answer.
Freeze him!
Melt Zeus!
Blow him away!
Guys, Olympus would be that way.
Oh, we're in trouble. Oh, big trouble. I gotta move. My lord and lady, the Titans have escaped, and they're practically at our gates!
Sound the alarm! Launch an immediate counterattack! Go! Go!
Gone, babe. Captured, my lord. Everyone's been captured. I've been captured. Hey, what's the glass?
Susie, I'm home.
Hades! You're behind this?
You're correct, sir.
I swear to you, Hades, when I get out of
I'm
it.
the one giving orders now, Bolt Boy. And I think I'm gonna like it here.
Don't get too comfortable, Hades.
Thank you, my boy.
Nice horsey! My intentions were pure! I really was attracted to you!
Now, watch your old man work.
My Beast Incarnate 4090 got a perfect score of 2.5 FPS. Hello, I'm Sinkiller and welcome. In this video, we're going to look at Overdrive at a high level, as many people have already covered that already.
We're going to the big time. Guys, these are your Overdrive treasures.
We're going to take a look at the 3 high-end options of the Raytracing Overdrive Optimization mod and decipher what will be the best option to pick for a 4090. We will compare benchmarks and in-game experience to help you decide which one you might want to give a crack. I'm going to show you how a rubbish bag is the very best way to demonstrate the big difference between extreme, ultra, and high quality options of the optimization mod. And at the exact same time, the Raytracing Overdrive Optimization mod can also offer a big FPS boost while making Overdrive accessible to lower end graphics card. So if you have a 4090 or a much lower spec graphics card, stick around because I'll make some suggestions on which option you should choose depending on your graphics card. And if you have a 4090, we'll get to the bottom of which is going to be the best choice. I'll show you how to install this mod and how to change between the different options very easily and simply, and point you in the right direction to help you figure out what's going to be the best option for you. But now let's take a look at Cyberpunk 2077 Overdrive update. There are loads of videos on Overdrive, but if it's the first time hearing about it or you're just to chill out, then here's the download. Cyberpunk now offers a ray tracing mode called Overdrive, which you can toggle on and off in your Cyberpunk settings. It's meant to be limited only to the 40 generation of graphics card, but I will help you get around this with the help of our good old friend, the modding community. Overdrive, at face value, it's a very welcome immersive addition that gets you stuck closer to reality within the game. To put this all very simply, Overdrive, all this does is make the lighting and reflections much more realistic. Check this part out. As I walk under the staircase with these noobs, it goes really dark and it looks much more realistic with the lack of lighting. I'm unable to make out the details of people's faces. Everyone looks shady, but at the very same time, I can see the reflection on the concrete from the light sources on the wall. And then for reflections, if you look at this puddle, you can see almost all the detail that would normally see in a reflective surface like a puddle. Really awesome stuff here. And this allows for a more realistic feel within the game. It's a sweet technology. But in truth, beforehand, I was thinking that Overdrive was clearly a very well-timed marketing strategy for both Nvidia and CDPR. CDPR being the developers and the makers of Cyberpunk 2077. But it was an opportunity for Nvidia to push more excitement in sales on the 40 Gen graphics card because it was a requirement for Overdrive, which turns out to be false, and you don't need a 40 Gen to run Overdrive. Nvidia desperately needs to push its sales to continue supporting their bloated stock price, and for CDRP to push Cyberpunk 2077 1.7 patch, which will ultimately help bring in a horde of new players along with the expansion Phantom Liberty. One can imagine a world where CDPR and Nvidia have gotten together and negotiated some marketing strategies to both help boost and sell their products, which is just the world we live in. There's nothing wrong with that. But where I take issue with targeted marketing strategies is when they're based on a lie. But whatever the case might be, Overdrive is a very awesome, welcomed visual update despite its more nefarious arbiters that might lurk in the dark. Now, what you've been waiting for, let's take a look at this bloody mod. So first of all, head over to Nexus Mod, that is the one-stop shop for all Cyber 2077 mods and various other games. The mod is called Raytracing Overdrive Optimization. It has been brought to us by E-Rock and Scorn, two legends that have worked in a few different mods, a few other mods such as Car Modification Shop, Cyber Vehicle Overhaul, Expanded Ammo Counts, Disable Loading Cinematics. These are all mods I have and are extremely useful. Thank you very much, E-Rock and Scorn, you legends. Let's have a look at the description of this mod. You will see in the description this YouTube video. I highly recommend checking out this video by Digital Foundry. They go through in quite awesome detail the difference between Overdrive, Ray Tracing, and also they cover this mod, or they also catalog which graphics cards can potentially access this Overdrive mode using this mod. It has a lot of good information there and you won't be disappointed. On a quick note though, what they don't cover is these three options here. Extreme high and ultra quality versions of this ray tracing optimization mod. Has your GPU had enough? Do you feel like FPS is just too freaking low on these tech previews? Well, I have a solution for you. For a one-time minimal cost. They're kidding. But it also brings a 1.5 or a 2% FPS boost. The lower end the graphics cards, you'll probably find it's a bit better than 2%, and also keep in mind that applies to the higher end graphics cards as well. Okay, so let's look at the different options. I'll give you a very high level suggestion on what option you could try depending on which graphics card you have. This will be based off hundreds of comments from the mod and some of the test results that have been posted. Easy to switch between the different options. If you don't like my suggestion, I'll show you how to download, install, and change the option shortly. So starting off, we have the 2060 Ti up to 3060 series playing at 1080p. You want to try the Ray Tracing Overdrive Optimization Original and Riz for best performance while using Overdrive. You should be able to run performance to balance mode and enjoy Overdrive. Please, for the sake of the graphics gods, photo mode should be disabled for you, but just in case, always keep photo mode off, because it fires 6 rays instead of 2 when compared to the normal gameplay. You only have 8 gig of RAM, you're gonna have a bad time.
Gonna have a bad time.
So where's the part where we have a good time?
Hey, little dude, you got some crap right here.
You're gonna crash the game in photo mode. Please disable it. If you're wondering what RIS means, it's an abbreviation for Resampled Importance Sampling, the system to produce better image out of a lower ray count developed prior to Nvidia's GRIZ. By default, the game uses GRIZ. GRIZ is an abbreviation meaning Generalized Resample Importance Sampling, a much heavier technique. It should look better, but that will depend on your preferences. This is why the Overdrive Optimization Original and Riz option is the best for performance and FPS boost. To put simply, it uses Riz over GRIZ. Maniz. For 3070, 3080 Ti's at 1440 and above, I'd suggest Ray Tracing Overdrive Optimization Original Mode Should be possible to run high settings and get over 60 FPS on performance mode. You could try the high mode and reduce some settings to get a good experience. 3090 up to the 4080s. I'd suggest trying the PT high mode at 1440p. You have a wide range of options here to flick things on and off to get the best sort of performance and FPS. If you have an AMD 7900 series, I'd suggest the Raytracing, Overdrive optimization and Riz at 1440 or 4K using the performance or ultra performance mode. Unfortunately, AMD is not the greatest when it comes to path tracing, so you may have to muck around with this a bit more. If you have an Intel, then throw that mofo in the bin until they fix their driver issues. And if you have a 4090, we'll get to the bottom of which is going to be the best choice. But first I'm going to show you how to download and install this mod. I'll also show you how to change your option if you're not happy with the one you selected. Cool thing about this mod, there is no requirements at all. All you need to do is just go to Files, select which option is right for you. You want a manual download, slow download, then you want to open up your file using WinZip or something like that. You want to very easily and carelessly drop that into your Cyberpunk 2077, and there you go, that's the mod installed. Okay, so that's the step to install all the different options except for original and Riz. So for original and Riz, it comes with an extra folder, so I'll show you. So same thing though, from files, we click manual download. Most of us will be clicking slow download. Once it's downloaded, do the same thing, we'll open it up in WinZip, and you'll notice that it has an extra file. It has the engine file with the optimized PT. So same again, we're just going to select both files, drag and drop into your Cyberpunk 2077 main directory. Since I've already downloaded and installed another one of the ray tracing optimizations, I'm going to click yes to replace. And now quickly, if you do want to switch to another mod that isn't Riz, let's say you want to go to ultra quality. You'd open ultra quality, you drag and drop, you would replace. And what I would do is I would also delete that file optimize PT ini, which is located in engine config platform PC. So just remember, if you're using Riz, this is an extra file. And if you want to switch to one of the other options, probably best practice to delete this optimized PT ini. So since I've switched to Ultra, I'm going to delete that. And just keep in mind, for all the other options, original, extreme, higher, and ultra quality, they only have one file, and you just need to drop and drag that into your main directory. Hope that makes sense. If you have any issues, leave a comment and I can help you out. Okay, before we go through these benchmarks and some of the in-game experiences with these different settings for this mod, I have a disclaimer. I wasn't able to replicate the 2.5 FPS on Extreme. Trying to go through what might have been, I updated the Intel graphics driver that does the rendering, but I don't think that's it. And I made sure I had all the exact same mods and applications open. I'm getting higher FPS now with the Extreme, but we're going from 2.5 to say maybe an average of 7, which is, something definitely substantial. What it looks like though, looking back at the footage of the original test, was one of the modifications I have is a reshader, and that was stuck at compiling. And I'm thinking perhaps that was what caused this FPS drop, because otherwise I'm not too sure why I'm getting such a different result now. But now in classic fashion, I've done a lot of the editing. I've come back to get some more footage, run the test again. We're getting higher FPS. So I'm going to have to rerun all the benchmarks again and throw that in. That way we can more realistic of the current day experience that I'm getting. But yeah, just wanted to highlight that fact. I know a lot of YouTubers say to do the thumbnails first, and I followed that exact order. And here I am, still going to keep that thumbnail, for at the time it was true. But yeah, at the moment, we're still getting terrible FPS, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be getting 1 to 2 FPS. And now, my dorky intro into the benchmarking.
You thought you had it all with your precious 1490. All high and mighty. Running games so silky smooth on your Ultra Megatron settings. Well, oh how the mighty have fallen. Look who's not so high and mighty now. You look pathetic, weak excuse of a graphics card. You should have listened to your mummy and bought a car instead.
Mummy, mummy, mummy.
That pretty much sums up the inner monologue I had to myself as I painfully watched a 30-second benchmark take 10 minutes on a 4090. It was almost frame by frame, as you can see, all due to a single mod. My Beast Incarnate 4090 got a perfect score of 2.5 FPS. 2.5. That would make sense if I was living in 2077 with the 4090, but I'm in 2023 and I had to sell my house and kitty just to get one. For that kind of price, I was expecting it to come with DLS Housewife, which would cook me dinner every night. What are we trying to find here? We're trying to find the best option out of the extreme, ultra, and high options for a 4090. And what will this mean? Well, for me, it means an FPS between 60 to 70. We need a bit of headroom because of some areas will take more FPS than normal. So I'm looking at that sweet spot of about 65 FPS. I want the clearest looking picture as possible. I want all the settings slammed to max. And I want to be running at 1440p. So how are we going to do this? So I'm going to run all the benchmarks against each individual option. So all the benchmarks against extreme, all the benchmarks against ultra, all the benchmarks against hard. We're going to pick the best FPS and fidelity of each of those categories. So we're going to pick one for extreme, one from hard, and one from ultra. And then we're going to put these three options head to head in real scenarios within the game. When comparing the game test, we're also going to use the default stock Overdrive Raytracing mode to give us a good backdrop of the differences between these different options. Let's look at the settings. Everything in basic will be off, field of view will be 70. I like 70 because it just gives a more realistic perspective. Everything is going to be pushed to as high as it can. Ray tracing, and most importantly, overdrive mode is going to be on all the benchmarks. We are going to run 4 different scenarios. We're going to run with everything off. We're going to run quality, balanced, and this mode that I'm not sure if it's a feature or not, but DLS frame generation and deep learning anti-aliasing. One caveat to this, just because the extreme option is so extreme, we're going to have to run balance and performance mode for that group of benchmarks only. Kicking off with the benchmarks, we are looking at the extreme benchmark. You can see on the far left hand corner, we have an FPS of 8 going to everything off. So this is definitely going to exclude this option from the extreme quality choice. Next, we have what might be a feature. I'm not sure if this was intentional because it seems like there's something funny about setting this up. You can have DLSS on and you can have DLA on, and this actually yields quite a good image quality. Let's just take a quick look at what this looks like. Seeing how we get quite a low FPS, this will also exclude these settings from the extreme quality choice. The next settings is with DLS on with balance setting. This is starting to yield a smoother, more natural frame rate, which is playable, but we're looking for that sweet spot. And yes, that means our winner is performance on the extreme setting. It renders quite a good quality and it gives us a great FPS at 1440p. The winner! And yes, it is under 60 FPS on average, but if we go to ultra, the quality and the fidelity looks quite terrible. So we'll just stick with performance because it does a reasonable job at this extreme crazy setting. The next benchmark is ultra. Now with ultra on average has a much more stable and balanced FPS, and the quality and the extra rays makes it probably one of the most viable options. Now if you have a look on the left hand side, everything is off. You get quite a good sharp image, but the frame rate is just going to be way too low. And with the sneaky DLSS and the DLA on, you get this very nice mixture of quality and a very reasonable frame rate. You definitely run it on this setting on your 4090. You want to lock it onto 30 FPS, you'd get quite a reasonable experience. And one of the main reasons it will be knocked off is because we need that extra FPS for those zones that are going to be more intensive, which will drop us at least to 60 or under. And this is just going to be a little bit too low on FPS to get us there, which ends us on the next 2 awesome options. So we have quality and balanced. Quality is definitely going to be the pick here because it has the best of both worlds, a very reasonable FPS with that extra quality, which is exactly what we're looking for. Whereas looking at the balance, it does offer quite a nice image and excellent frame rate. This is definitely an option you could run as well, but we'll go for that sweet spot on quality, which gives us a pretty nice FPS, awesome fidelity with many more rays bouncing around. And next we have, and last and definitely not the least, we have the high quality of the Overdrive optimization mod. And let's check out these benchmarks. Now at this point, everything is looking awesome between the different settings. You could select any one of these settings and get away with a very good high quality experience. Noting that having everything off, you would probably have to lock in a frame rate of about 30 to experience the most optimal experience with that setting on. If you had the option to overclock, you could definitely get a few more FPS just to make it run over a bit over 30 in most scenarios. So that would definitely be an option. All the other options are great, but quality and balance look amazing. And at this point, it's hard to distinguish between the two. We're going to pick the option of having DLSS frame generation on, and we're going to pick the option of having DLA on. This way, it'll make it a bit more interesting when we do the comparison between the three different options of extreme, ultra, and high. But ultimately, you could pick any of these options with your 4090. When you look at the results of a benchmark, when you have yes for DLSS and DLA, it will come up as a result of no under DLS enabled, but just ignore that. It is actually on. That's why I'm thinking this is more of a bug or a feature, but we'll have to see going forward with the next release or patch or hotfix. And the way you can tell is that when you lock in the settings before you run the benchmark, you'll have DLSS on and you'll have DLAA on, and the benchmark runs and you get a unique FPS with this setting compared to all the other options. That kind of verifies that it is on, at least from my perspective. So just something to note. And this may change within the hotfix or patches coming. Now let's dive into the real world scenarios where we're going to compare the choices for high, ultra, and extreme against each other. And then we're going to pick one of these options to compare against the most optimized option of the Overdrive optimization mod. And we'll also compare to having Overdrive off to give some sort of comparison between what it's going to look like between having a very high ray and bounce count versus having it very optimized with, say, 2 rays, 1 bounce, and having Overdrive completely off. This should give us enough contrast and idea of how this all sort of works and looks together. And then I'm going to leave you with some high, ultra, and extreme gameplay to get soaked into what you could expect if you get a 4090 playing this game with this mod. And if you did get anything out of this, please consider subscribing and liking this video. It would honestly mean the world to me. Cool, let's get into some awesome real world examples. First off, let's look at a comparison with lots of motion. We're going to be driving around a roundabout, and I've slowed some of the footage down so it might be a bit easier to tell. Initially, when you first look, you can't really tell that there's too much difference other than that degraded fidelity on the extreme due to the fact that it's on a performance mode. So its rendering and quality is going to be significantly less with DLSS enabled. But here, if we freeze a frame, you can also notice that some of the detail is definitely missing, and this is just an example of why this is a terrible way to test the extreme, ultra, and higher options of this mod. Now we're going to watch a little bit more of this footage, and if you can see any other differences between extreme, ultra, and high, definitely let me know in the comments. I've been playing Spot the Difference for a good 2 days now, and it's been difficult other than the very obvious difference between the settings themselves. But you have to admit, this game truly does look amazing, and this ray tracing overdrive mode is something else. Now let's compare our 3 choices in a much more FPS intensive area. You can see that the extreme is definitely ruled out because the FPS is just too low, whereas ultra is maintaining quite a good FPS, definitely going to be the winner in this test. High quality also looking very sharp, the FPS is sitting below 60, but I definitely note that I think the high option is quite a sharp image and definitely has noticeably less artifacting, and you may or may not be able to see the artifacting in this demonstration, but I'm going to show you now one of the biggest drawbacks between extreme, ultra, and in some cases high, but just with overdrive in general. There is a bit more potential options and scenarios where artifacting will happen, particularly around hair, depending on what option you're running in your settings. The really bad noticeable artifacting will become extremely obvious when you're running ultra performance mode. Definitely with extreme, ultra, and somewhat high, you will notice quite a lot of artifacting in certain scenarios. So I tend to stay away from ultra performance with all these higher options of this mod. But do note, you will see artifacting across the board. It just comes with the territory of adding more rays and more bounces. But in saying that, 95% of the time, if you have your settings right, you won't even notice it. Technology behind ray tracing has everything to do with darkness and light. A couple of reflective surfaces, better water, and most importantly, garbage bags is the most perfect way to show you optimization mod. Now keep in mind that the different options between extreme, ultra, and high come down to firing off more rays and more bounces of light between surfaces and geometry. But first I want to give you an example of what it's like looking at water with a little bit of light behind it in the terms of absolute darkness in terms of this game. You can see in the comparison straight away that the water is not as nearly as well lit as it is to the extreme and ultra when comparing to the high. And this is one way we can start to see a bit of a difference between the 3 different options. And then how about firing a gun in slow motion in the same kind of condition? that with all the additional rays and bounces, at least the gun flash should be a little bit longer between extreme, ultra and high. Let's see if there's any sustained light reflection off the wall and surfaces between the three options. As far as I can tell, this seems to be the case. Racer rounds from extreme definitely last a lot longer when compared to high and even ultra. I'm just going to keep playing this because the animations look so cool. And also, just so you can see the extra light on the wall in this example, noting that the extra light from extreme definitely does last milliseconds or seconds longer. Let's go have a look at the best example I can possibly give to demonstrate the difference between extreme, ultra and high quality. The best way for me to demonstrate the differences is going to be a bunch of trash and a flashlight. Sounds super strange, and it is, but it's a great way of demonstrating how the light is bouncing off and lasting longer within the surfaces and geometry of a given shape or texture. In this example, I've aligned the frame rate as best as I can by mucking around with the settings so we can eliminate that there's a difference between the frame rate, causing this sustained light in the geometry and shape and reflective surfaces of this garbage bag. And yes, this might be a bug of some kind, but it'd be a struggle to find a better example that demonstrates the extreme option having so many more rays and bounces that it takes a significant more amount of time for all the light to be completely removed from the screen. And this is why when you're driving around, you might not be able to notice the difference between the options. But this is what your graphics card's trying to deal with. And that's why it could make your 4090 insignificant, weak and pathetic. When you do a comparison between extreme and the optimized original and Riz, initially at first glance you really can't tell much of a difference. But if you do start comparing frame by frame, you can start to see quite a big difference. But you really do have to look for it, and it doesn't really add a whole heap of extra value to the immersion, but it definitely does add some. Now where things get interesting is where you compare extreme to overdrive off to the optimization. And you can see how dramatic it is, even just between having overdrive off and having optimization original Riz option. This is another example that really highlights how powerful this mod is and what a good job it does at actually adding overdrive functionality with a helping hand to the overall performance while using the overdrive mode. Coupled with this optimization mod, it also highlights how much immersion overdrive really does add. You can see with having overdrive mode on, it is a completely different immersive experience compared to having it off. Now let's go back to the classic garbage bag test, and we'll have extreme, overdrive off, and the optimization. And instantly you can see how different it is. Overdrive, there's always light. You basically can't compare it to overdrive really at all because the lighting is just so different. The optimization does quite well. Now let's have a look what happens if we actually put the optimization against, say, high and ultra. How does it actually perform? Now the results go quite quickly, but you can see here it actually performs very well. There'd be little obvious difference between having the higher quality option versus the original Riz, highlighting how awesome this mod is in terms of giving an entry-level overdrive experience to many more people and graphics cards. With all the different benchmarks I've run with the 4090, I can definitely suggest that if you want to try the optimization mod, definitely get ultra and run it on balanced with all the settings high. You get an excellent quality, great FPS, and the environment is simply stunning. In my opinion, I'm loving overdrive. Now, alternatively, easily go high is an alternative option I definitely like to run as well. But just because I can, and I think there is a noticeable difference for me personally, definitely would recommend running ultra quality of the optimization mod. And that's going to conclude the video. Thanks so much. If you watched it to this point, you're a legend, and I hope you got something out of it. If you did get something out of it, like and subscribe. I'll leave you with a little bit more footage of some comparisons that I ran that I didn't include in the initial discussion.